solid waste management continues to plague the city, cervical cancer awareness heightens, and more efforts to tackle human trafficking. This is Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you updated on what the government has been doing. With the details, I'm your host, Vindy Tamesher. Solid waste management in Georgetown continues to be a sore issue, and what is more disappointing is that the City Council is moving at snail's pace to rectify the situation. Over the past few weeks, 8 compacted trucks as well as several other vehicles have been down, and little effort has been made to source the necessary parts to repair them. Meanwhile, there are 19 persons employed at the council's mechanical workshop, and no one can account for what they have been doing.
These are trucks that were bought with subvention, taxpayers' money, and also taxpayers' rates and taxes. These trucks have been down, 8 of them. We learned also about other vehicles that have been down and therefore not in a position to provide the services for which they were acquired in the first place. Equally important, we wanted to know what efforts were being made to make these vehicles functional and what the workers were doing.
There have also been reports of poor management at the solid waste department, especially where workers are concerned. Constant absenteeism, and in some cases insubordination by workers have also been reported.
The council is not interested. I am not aware that the mayor has come here to inquire why these trucks are down, why they're not working, why people are complaining of not having their garbage collected in the past month, 2 months. I'm not aware that he has inquired. I have been in constant contact with the town clerk and through her with the acting city engineer, because I'm concerned. I know that we at the ministry are concerned, government is concerned that these are put in working order so that they can improve the quality of service in the area of solid waste collection.
The local government ministry continues to engage the council with a view of having these problems resolved as early as possible so that the service of garbage collection can resume as per normal. It is also looking at examining the systems that are in place and workers' conduct in terms of getting the work done. Meanwhile, waste pickers at the Higgs-Bush landfill site were given bicycles to improve their efficiency in solid waste collection.
During a recent visit to the landfill by Minister Whitaker, several bicycles were distributed to the waste pickers department.
The prime purpose of this morning's engagement is to pay homage, acknowledge the contribution that the waste pickers, waste recyclers have been making at this site. And even equally importantly, to assess the project, the development, the progress that we would have made since the last meeting of a similar nature here at this site.
It was revealed that the local government ministry is considering extending the opening and closing hours of the landfill.
As we came in here this morning and saw dump sites along the access road and engaging some of my colleagues in conversation, we determined that whilst it has to do definitely with attitude, all attitudes are difficult to change, we needed urgently to re-examine the closing hours at Higgs-Bush, the opening and closing hours, with a view to determining whether that indeed is the issue, the problem.
The Higgs-Bush visit signaled the launch of a local government ministry's venture to bring greater public awareness to tackle the issue of solid waste management and disposal in Guyana.
We have to stop thinking because you pay a few dollars in rates and taxes, you have a right to litter and somebody else will come behind and clean up. So I would like to use this public education launch this morning to make a personal appeal. The government is putting in the money. The infrastructure exists at the local government level, but we need the cooperation of all citizens to ensure that we have a clean and healthy Guyana and we have proper solid waste management.
It is hoped that greater public education on the implications of careless disposal can affect changes that will bring about organized and structured garbage collection and disposal.
There were significant road development during 2012, with the Public Works Ministry spending some $4.6 billion on enhancing the network.
Roads were done on the East Coast, East Bank, Hinterland, and in several of the administrative regions.
The total sum that was budgeted in 2012 was $6.38 billion. At the end of 2012, we spent 4.61, or 72% of the sum that was allocated on the roads and bridges. In terms of the farm funded project, the sum of 3.47 was budgeted, and at the end of the year we spent 2.35, or 68% of the sum. Some of the major projects that has been completed over the year, and generally with foreign funded projects, they are not 1 year program. They generally run beyond between a year to 2 years.
5 kilometers of the East Coast Road was upgraded at a cost of $2.5 billion. 107 kilometers of miscellaneous roads in regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 were undertaken and was 20% completed at the end of 2012. 10 kilometers of urban roads in regions 2, 4, 6, and 10 were done to the tune of $234 million. On the hinterland roads, $342 million, or 32%, was disbursed. The funding covered work on 679 kilometers of roads in region 1, 8, 9, and 10.
The total length of road rehabilitated in 2012, 320 kilometers. But in terms of contract, the total lengths that will be rehabilitated at the end of the program, 679 kilometers.
Improvements were done on 3.5 kilometers of access road to the Chedijagan International Airport, costing $1.62 million. Regarding the 4-lane expansion on the East Bank, 30% was completed in 2012 at a cost of $17.3 million, while work is 50% completed on 11 kilometers of remedial roads, which cost $2.15 million.
The tourism sector will employ a number of strategies to increase tourist arrivals within the first quarter of this year. Foremost on the agenda is the promotion of Guyana in the international press.
All activities will be held under the theme Rediscover Home, Celebrate Your Life, Celebrate Your Home.
Our objective this year is to sustain arrival, ensure that occupancy in the hotels grow, and to create local demand. A local demand for art or craft or food. One of our strategies is to target films, documentaries, and travel writers, and have them come into Guyana on fan trips and some on their own to do a lot of PR work for us to ensure that brand Guyana gets out there.
International agencies like Adventure Life, the Discovery Channel, and Raw TV are expected to feature Guyana in their publications and broadcasts. Plans are also paced for Mashramani celebrations. Minister Ali stated that the visitors plan will be launched to attract the Guyanese diaspora, and talks have begun with bands and the tourist operators from Brazil, Suriname, and Trinidad to promote MASH packages. The ministry also plans to host a massive street celebration on Brig Dam on the eve of Mashramani.
We are also going to try to capture the number of our arrivals at Letem, our arrivals at Quarantine, and Ogle. These 3 areas right now are not included in the arrival figures. But I think it is very important that we capture that figure, because a large percentage of those arrivals utilize our local services. Within this first quarter also, we hope to initiate discussions with WestJet, Air Canada, and JetBlue. We have been working closely with the Canadian High Commissioner, who is trying to facilitate some meetings for us with Air Canada. WestJet, as you know, a month ago started to fly directly to Trinidad. So we're trying to encourage WestJet to come to Guyana. So we're definitely going to work within the first quarter on having extensive discussions with these 3 carriers.
Ali announced that collectively 40 new local investments totaling more than $25 billion will be implemented. These new investments will embellish existing services and create new attractions to meet certain international expectations. 800 new jobs will be created as a result of this huge investment.
More features still to come, please stay tuned.
The Women of Worth program, a microcredit scheme introduced to lift the economic standing of especially single parents, has transformed the lives of over 2,300 women. Tapping into the loan facility has enabled them to better their and their families' lives.
Great improvements have been made in road construction and rehabilitation under the Hinterland Road program. In the Moruca sub-region, Region 1, 60 miles of road was rehabilitated and constructed, while in Region 4, 12 miles of the St. Cuthbert's Trail has been transformed into an all-weather road.
The health sector can be considered as a training institution, since Guyanese are afforded the opportunity to pursue medical training in a number of fields, including medicine, nursing, and surgery at the postgraduate level, midwifery, dentistry, and technicians. All of these ensure efficient delivery of healthcare. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Amerindians are now fully involved in every aspect of development, from the highest level of decision-making to that of their communities. Amerindians have been catapulted into the mainstream of society because of the educational and other opportunities made available to them by the PPPC administration over the past 2 decades. Advancement has also been made at the international level, where Amerindians represent their country.
The Health Ministry will be heightening awareness of cervical cancer through the hosting of a National Week of Screening from January 14 to 18. This is part of the activities for Cervical Cancer Awareness Month observed in January.
Some of the other activities include educational sessions in schools, televised programs, and on January 23, a vigil will be held at Parliament buildings. The ministry will be partnering with several corporate entities including Qualfund, Republic Bank, GRA, Ashmins, and Laparcon to conduct the week of screening.
And interestingly, we've been allowed by Parliament to actually take a clinic for the female parliamentarians and others to the Parliament building. Right in Parliament, we will be having our clinic to demonstrate to the nation that this is a simple method that can go to any community.
Visual inspecting using acetic acid, VIA, is basically the use of table acid, which when applied to the cervix causes a reaction that enables the medical personnel to carry out the diagnostics when viewing the cervix.
It is important to do your test because early detection can save your life. And I know there are a lot of women out there that are scared to do the test. I can assure you at the Georgian Public Hospital, we have persons that can deal with you in a very professional yet friendly manner.
We do not only do VIA, we also do your abdominals. We check the genital areas to see if there is the HPV virus, if you have warts there, if there is any sexual transmitted disease. You know, it's not only VIA, it's a woman thing.
Since its start in 2009, over 26,000 women were screened using VIA, with 150 suspected cancer cases, some of which were diagnosed by the Gynecology and Oncology Department, and 2,500 were tested positive and treated immediately.
Since Guyana has been one of the largest figure of cervical cancer in the Latin American and in the Western Hemisphere, because our figures are so high, there is something that the Ministry of Health had to do to reduce some of the large figures that we're encountering in cervical cancer. And that method, as my colleagues are saying, is VIA method.
There are 18 service delivery points where this service is available, and it has been expanded through the medical outreach program. This has seen many women accessing the service due to their increased knowledge of the importance of being screened.
The foster care program was introduced to ensure that children have a stable life around people who love them. This program has been successfully expanding, evident in the fact that there are now 150 children living with 90 foster parents.
Foster families are receiving a cash transfer of $18,000 per child from government every month.
The foster care program continues to expand and strengthen through awareness programs to encourage more persons to open up their homes and hearts to take children in. During the year 2012, there were also special training programs conducted for potential foster parents and those who have children in their care.
Meanwhile, with regards to the Children at Risk program, support was provided to 151 children through a collaboration with ChildLink and seeks to provide psychosocial support and other assistance to families with children who are found in vulnerable situations.
The objective of that program is to supply support for the well-being of the children and to prevent separation from their natural family.
In the area of capacity building, the Child Care and Protection Agency conducted training programs for its staff, and there was a collaborative workshop sponsored by UNICEF that brought together staff of the agency, police ranks, and prosecutors.
The continuation of significant investments towards maintaining sea defense infrastructure throughout the country was notable in 2012.
The Work Services Group of the Public Service Ministry had its fair share of challenges in 2012 as sections of the sea defense infrastructure were affected by spring tides, mostly in September, that caused the most damage as they resulted in breaches and overtopping of embankments, which led to flooding in several areas.
For 2012, we had a great reduction. There were less overtopping other than those areas which went through our natural erosion cycle, such as Cane Garden, and also Stanleyton in New Amsterdam.
However, additional investment is still needed to ensure effective rehabilitation and maintenance works. This is to reduce the length of structures classified as critical, of which several have been upgraded.
We had a total budgeted sum for the sea defense of 2.883 billion, and we would have spent 2.29 of that 2.8 to date. So we have seen some amount of increase in terms of our budget allocation within the Civil Defense Division, both in terms of our maintenance and also in terms of our national projects.
Some of the achievements for 2012 also include the establishment of field staff for both roads and bridges and sea defense. New units established in the Work Services Group complement field work.
Government is set to embark on a massive campaign against trafficking in persons, built on the principle of the 4 Ps: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. In 2012, only 6 confirmed cases were recorded, all of which are before the courts.
The ministry has established a counter-trafficking in persons unit and has launched a hotline number for cases to be reported as part of efforts to aggressively tackle the issue of trafficking in persons for 2013.
We will aggressively this year undertake various methods. And I think you're familiar with the 3 Ps, protection and our watchwords at the level of the National Task Force, right? So I don't think that we will have any countenance for that. I will say that once we have reports of suspected cases of trafficking in persons, we will investigate them in detail because it is our intention to have prosecution.
In 2012, the ministry received 32 reports of trafficking in persons, TIP. However, subsequent investigations that were carried out, only 6 were confirmed cases, all of which are being prosecuted before the courts. The government has sought to implement imaginative approaches within the context of available resources so as to prevent and mitigate the impacts of current and emerging threats. To this end, there have been enhanced cross-border and anti-crime efforts, including TIP activities, across Guyana, Suriname, and Brazil and at the regional level, with sister CARICOM countries under the Treaty on Mutual Assistance on Criminal Matters. Trafficking in persons is an estimated $32 billion per year global industry after drug trafficking, and it is seen as the world's second most profitable criminal enterprise, a status it shares with trafficking in illegal arms.
More features still to come. Please stay tuned.
The Women of Worth program, a microcredit scheme introduced to lift the economic standing of especially single parents, has transformed the lives of over 2,300 women. Tapping into the loan facility has enabled them to better their and their families' lives.
Great improvements have been made in road construction and rehabilitation under the Hinterland Road program. In the Moruca sub-region, Region 1, 60 miles of road was rehabilitated and constructed, while in Region 4, 12 miles of the St. Cuthbert's Trail has been transformed into an all-weather road.
The health sector can be considered as a training institution since Guyanese are afforded the opportunity to pursue medical training in a number of fields, including medicine, nursing, and surgery at the postgraduate level, midwifery, dentistry, and technicians. All of these ensure efficient delivery of healthcare. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Amerindians are now fully involved in every aspect of development from the highest level of decision making to that of their communities. Amerindians have been catapulted into the mainstream of society because of the educational and other opportunities made available to them by the PPPC administration over the past 2 decades. Advancement has also been made at the international level where Amerindians represent their country.
The government of Guyana has cleared the air on issues surrounding Linden TV licenses. It maintained that this process must be done in accordance with the law.
The issues being brought to the fore by Region 10 officials, such as the use of a particular frequency for broadcasts by the community, were never part of initial discussions.
The agreement talks about a television license for Region 10, a television station for Region 10, and that it would be in accordance with the law, that is the Broadcasting Act. As far as I know, and it was stated in the meeting when we met on December 18th, that the Region 10 had sent in their application to the Broadcasting Authority. They indicated that the chairman of the Broadcasting Authority had been in contact with them. Mr. Norton was of the view that the government, regardless of there being a board, should intervene to make sure they get their license. And we said the law says what you have to do. Once you're in compliance, we don't see this being a problem.
The issue of the use of Channel 13, which was recently raised by Region 10 officials, was also addressed.
We made it very clear that the designation of a channel and a number of a channel is not the responsibility of the government. This is the Broadcasting Authority, and that it was never anticipated and never raised in the agreement or prior to the agreement that the Linden community, as represented by Mr. Solomon, wanted a particular channel to be theirs. So they were reminded that they were now raising new issues that were not part of the agreement.
Teixeira reminded that all of the documentation regarding previous meetings are available and Region 10 residents should not be misled.
There seems to be an attempt to create a problem when there is no problem. And I want to say clear to the Region 10 people, do not be misled again by Mr. Solomon and Ms. Kissoon and Mr. Norton. That we met and the meeting of January 4th was cancelled by Mr. Solomon. We've had no word from him of a new date. And from the time that has happened, there are these comments in the press. And if Mr. Solomon feels that this is the way he wishes to negotiate with the government through the mouthpiece of the press, well, he's free to do that. But this is not how we were going in November and December.
The Agriculture Ministry has recognized that private cane farmers are contributing some 160,000 to 170,000 tons of sugar to the Skeldon factory. While this is welcome, the intent is for them to double their scale of production.
The Guyana Sugar Corporation has contracted Bosch Engineering to implement several improvements to the Skeldon Sugar Factory, which should improve efficiency to approximately 75 to 80% of its capacity for its current average of about 60%. With these improvements, the demand for supplies of cane will increase.
The private cane farmers at Skeldon provide between 160 and 170 thousand tons of cane to the Skeldon factory. So already the private farmers are producing a substantial amount of cane for the factory.
The intention is for private farmers to double their present output by 2016, according to Minister Dr. Ramsamy.
The private farmers have done an excellent job. We need to put another approximately 2,500 hectares of land under cultivation. Of that, about 2,000 hectares are under the ownership and control of the private sector. So the private sector still have some land that they need to bring under cultivation. The other 500 acres or so are government government land, or Gaisuko land, and that is presently being undertaken. So in the next couple of years,
most of the sugar produced at Skeldon is exported to CARICOM countries and Europe, whilst Blaemont's production goes towards meeting the 100,000 tons needed for packaged sugar. The $181 million Skeldon project that was commissioned in 2009 is expected to be a major contributor to reducing the cost of production, improving local sugar quality, increasing production in excess of 450,000 tons, enhancing sucrose recovery, reducing operational costs, improving operational efficiencies, and attracting carbon credits.
And with that, we've come to the end of this week's program, but before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. Poor solid waste management continues to plague the city, cervical cancer awareness heightens, and more efforts to tackle human trafficking. Remember that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at gina@gina.gov.gy. Thank you for having us in your homes, and do join us again next week for another program. Until then, be safe and have a productive rest of the week. Goodbye.